Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's assembly on studying smart. I'll begin with a short quote from Maya Angelou, and it's something you might want to keep in mind. Is do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So there are a few things on the slide that you can read, but I'm going to say a few things as well. Practice active listening by concentrating on what's being said by your teacher and your peers. Avoid distractions and take notes in your own words. Students who take notes by hand tend to process and reframe the information. This will help make sure you hear and understand what's being taught in class. Success in your studies starts with a clear plan of what you need to do and how you're going to fit it all in. If you're studying for exams, the first thing you need to be clear on is what's expected of you. Have a list of topics, subtopics, and consider a simple tracking system so you can see at a glance which topic needs more work. A traffic light system can work great for this. Red for work needs work, amber for getting there, and green for got this. Start with the red topics, and when you're done with them, move on to amber. Once you have made your map, do a quick time budget for it. Example, if there are 11 chapters to study and you've got 25 days before the test, that's one chapter every 2 days with a couple of days in hand. Don't make your study plan too detailed. Be flexible. Now, most students spend time learning a topic, then start looking at past paper questions. Flip that on its head. And you will see you will get better results. Start by looking at real exam questions for the topic, maybe even attempting a few, making educated guesses wherever you need to. Then when you go back and revise the topic, you'll have a much deeper sense of what you need to know and why, and how you'll end up applying it in the exam. If you're working on a project or assignment, see if you can get any examples of what good looks like. Perhaps some past student projects are available in the library, or your tutors have made some model essays which you can access. The more you understand about what the assessors want to see, the easier it will be for you to deliver. What are the most important things in your life right now? Your studies might be at or near the top of the list. There may be one or two other things, your sporting or musical commitments, a club or your family. Work out what the top priorities are, and then be bold about saying no to everything that doesn't help you advance your top priorities. Behind just about every successful student is a great routine. Your study routine is quite a personal thing, so there's no one size fits all. All template timetable that works, a timetable that works for everyone. But if you don't have a regular routine, take some time now to sketch out what an ideal study day might look like. Some things to consider. When are your energy levels naturally highest? Do you do your best work in the first half of the morning, just before lunch, late afternoon? Schedule study blocks to take advantage of this biological prime time. Can you add in some regular spaced in retrieval practice? Example, testing yourself on new material from the day, first thing in the morning and last thing at the night. I'm going to talk about spaced retrieval practice later on. And when you leave time for yourself, if you're ambitious, it's tempting to cram as much work into each day as possible. Start by being sure. If you're new to your study routine, don't aim for gold on day one. Set your sights conservatively with a routine you know you can absolutely stick to, even on low energy, low motivation days. If you feel you can do more, but better to exceed your expectations than set yourself up for failure and discouragement. The key to studying effectively is consistency. The difference between high performers and everyone else is often very small. Two students want to get into Cambridge. One spends a quarter of an hour a night reading around his or her subject, the other doesn't. 6 months later, one has lots of interesting things to say in their interview, the other doesn't. Two students are ambitious for exam success. One spends 10 minutes a night memory journaling, the other doesn't. Come the end of the year, one has a decent memory for lots of the course and goes on to do really well in the exams. So change your daily habits even by just a bit, and you can change your life, provided you stay consistent. You've got your plan, now you need to execute it. It's tempting to think you can get more done by multitasking, but actually each time you concentrate, your concentration breaks or you switch to something else, you lose valuable minutes refining your focus on whatever you were trying to do. So practice monotasking, being disciplined about giving your full attention to the task at hand. Control external distractions as much as you can. Start by taking control of your phone. Put it on airplane mode, or better yet, switch it off. Then get the phone off your desk and out of sight. Even if you're making an effort to ignore the ting or the buzz every time someone messages you on Snapchat, WhatsApp, you will need an iron will to stop your mind wandering off to wonder what's going on social media today. It's normal for other thoughts to drift into your head when you sit down to work, worrying about other subjects, ideas, or plans, things you need to do. You can train your mind to have better focus, so why not try maintaining a distractions list? Keep a notepad to hand so you can write thoughts down and get them out of your head as soon as they occur. You can then come back to them later when you have time to give them the attention they need. Depending on the intensity of your work focus and your concentration span, take time out every 25 to 50 minutes to rest and reset. Pausing between study sessions is one of the best ways to keep your energy and focus up over the long haul so that you can remain effective. Studying is a marathon, not a sprint. Best practice is to avoid turning on the TV, opening a phone game, checking messages, emails, or doing anything else that will break your focus. Save these activities for a longer break. Good things you can do during a 10-minute breather could be making a snack, looking out through the door or the window, taking a short walk, doing some light exercises like push-ups or yoga, or stretches, anything that lets your mind rest and reset without being pulled into a new world of distraction. Set a timer for, say, 30 minutes and work while it's counting down. When the timer goes off, stop work and take a short break, maybe for 5 or 10 minutes. Then rinse and repeat with a longer break after 3 or 4 cycles of working and a shorter break. Now, fans of the Pomodoro technique like the focus and the motivation that comes when you set a ticking clock in the background and having the structure of more intense bursts of work with short breaks to recharge. Your study space can have a big impact on your ability to get things done. Here are some considerations when you're choosing and setting up the perfect study environment. What resources do you need? This includes resources for your studies like access to books or somewhere comfortable to type or write. What kind of vibes do you want? Do you want the library reading room silence or the solitude of your room? Any space that improves focus is good. A space that helps your memory or what is called the context-dependent recall is basically that if you do learning in an environment A and later have to recall it in environment B, the more similar the two environments are, the easier it will be to recall if you're sitting your tests, for example, in a big exam hall. Can you do at least some of your studying in a space that feels a bit like an exam hall, like a big, silent, intimidating school library or a school or a reading room? How can you personalize your space? Your space should give you motivation, offer you calm and lift your spirits. It is not going to be the same as the exam hall, but you can do a lot to ensure that it replicates this. You may find that different spaces work better for you on different days. Maybe the silence of a library is brilliant for structuring an essay, but you enjoy the buzz of a classroom when you're working on a project. A change of scenery impacts learning and concentration abilities. Simply moving to a different room to study or going a step further and learning amongst the great outdoors could increase both your concentration and retention levels. Now, music. Can I listen to music while studying? A short answer, sometimes, not always. It all depends on whether the music is distracting you from the task at hand or not. That partly depends on the choice of the music. If it's a personal thing, but you're likely to be distracted by music that has lyrics and or is unfamiliar to you. But it also depends on the task at hand. The more cognitively demanding the task, the lower your threshold for being distracted by music. Music will rarely put you off your stride when doing simple tasks. However, it might when you're straining to get your head round a complex new calculus technique or marshalling your research into an elegant, multi-layered essay argument. Now, I want to stress on this that students' performance, your performance, transforms time and again when you start to apply the principles of learning science, the psychology of memory, to your studies. The best learning happens when you're trying to recall information. The moment when you're pulling a piece of information out of your memory is the magic moment in which your memory for the information gets strengthened. It's a principle that I spoke about before, and it's called retrieval practice, sometimes known as active recall. So don't just push the information in over and over again by rereading, highlighting, or taking notes. It might feel as though you are learning, but you'll quickly forget what you studied. Focus on pulling information out of memory. Test yourself on what you know. Even if you're learning with recall practice, your memory will fade over time, as per the forgetting curve. The solution is to space out your retrieval practice. When are you going to bring it back into your memory? Don't do it all in one day, but spread it out with intervals in between. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to put in more time overall on a given topic, but it does mean spacing out the topic's allotted study time over different days. So rather than spending an hour on one subtopic all on the same day, do half an hour the first day, then do 10 minutes after a day or two, 10 minutes a week or so later, 10 minutes the week before the exams. How does one build memory? So when you combine spacing with retrieval practice, you get spaced retrieval practice. That is testing yourself repeatedly on the topic at timed intervals. When you start doing this, the real memory magic happens. When you practice spaced retrieval practice, what you're really doing is interrupting forgetting. Your brain is lazy and naturally wants to forget information that's not important or what it perceives as being not important. But each time you leave a time delay, then try and recall it, it sends a powerful signal that this information matters. And your memory responds by storing it away much more strongly. The key is to build regular opportunities for spaced retrieval practice into your study routine, and there are lots of ways to do this. Now, when you're doing retrieval practice, it should feel tough, but not impossibly so. If you're struggling to remember more than half of the topic you're studying, you probably need to back up a step. Reread your notes again or break the topic down into smaller chunks and practice one section at a time. But it shouldn't feel too easy either. If you're getting 95% right, space it out more and leave a longer delay to make it harder. The best learning happens in the Goldilocks zone when it's tough to remember the information, but not impossibly so. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right. You vary the amount of spacing in order to make sure you're landing right in the Goldilocks zone. If it feels too easy, space it out more by leaving a longer delay before retesting. If it feels too easy, leave a shorter delay and space it out less. As you do your retrieval practice, it's worth underlining that it doesn't really matter if you get a given question right or wrong. The point of testing yourself on a fact isn't to check whether you have learned it. The testing is the learning itself. And I want to repeat that. The testing is the learning itself. When we learn new information, it's much easier to make sense of and easier to remember if we can figure out how it relates to things we already know. So if a topic doesn't make sense, try sketching out the big building blocks on paper using a spider diagram or mind map to see how it interrelates with other things that you have studied. Or if the topic is about a process that goes in order from start to finish, try a flow diagram. If you're learning a language, for instance, think about how new words relate to words you already know in your own language. Now, what are effective study strategies? We have to learn to actually start using any of these with confidence, competence, and consistency. Now, let's start with my favorite, flashcards. Flashcards can be a fabulous way to study, but they are literally made for retrieval practice. Here are the top do's and don'ts when making flashcards. So, do have a clear question on the front, a clear answer on the back. Don't put too much information on either side. Less is more and note form is fine. I'll repeat that. Put less on the cards and note form is fine. In fact, it's encouraged. Some of the most effective flashcards use just very few words on the question side and I have a single word, name, date or number on the back. Do add a note on the front of the card about what you're trying to remember. If it's a list of 5 things, write the number 5, for instance, on the front of the card. Don't spend too much time writing the cards. Remember that the real benefit comes when you test yourself on the cards. So, do test yourself on the cards at intervals, spaced over time, and don't be tempted to refresh your memory by flicking through the cards before you retest yourself. That's cheating and completely messes with the benefits of the spacing effect. All of this works great with paper flashcards, but it applies equally well to most digital flashcard systems like Anki or Quizlet that you can click through again and again. The great thing about flashcards is that they are easily portable, which means you can carry them in your bag. Slip them in your bag so we can pull them out whenever you have a spare minute. This is a fantastic way to squeeze in extra practice time outside your regularly scheduled study sessions. The next one, notes. Do you like to write notes? It's a feel-good learning, and you might feel all good and productive while you're making the notes, but you're not making much progress on actually learning the stuff, as measured by how much you can remember a week or 2 later. But what should you do if you like to study with notes? Divide the page in two and write questions in the left-hand column and answers in the right-hand column. Question and answer notes work in two ways by splitting up your notes into questions and answer pairs. It forces you to engage with the material in more depth. But the best bit is you have now got ready-made study resource to do retrieval practice with. Simply cover up the answers column and test yourself on each question in turn. Done well, this technique actually ends up being extremely similar to flashcards. The main difference being the size of the paper you're using. So follow all the do's and don'ts. Now, what's blank page retrieval? Here's how it works. So put your books away, then scribble down everything you can remember about a topic. After you've squeezed out as much as you can from memory, go back to your books and add in any missing details and correct anything you misremembered with a different colored pen. Rinse and repeat. And see the power of spaced repetition. Next time you train yourself on this topic, aim to have fewer missing details until you have none at all the week before the exams. And all it requires is a plain sheet of paper. Reading. Reading can have its place in your overall study system, often near the start of the process. And I want to repeat this. Reading has its uses, but only when you're starting, the beginning of the study process. For example, if you intend to use a different technique, example, flashcards, Q&A notes, but it's the first time looking at the material and you want some initial familiarity with it. So if you want to make reading more effective as a study technique, here are some tips. The slightly better, highlight or underline keywords and phrases as you go, which helps you stay focused and avoid missing key information. What is much better? Read with highlighting and underlining, then challenge yourself to a round of blank page retrieval right after the reading. This will massively help the information to start to stick through retrieval practice, plus helping you structure and organize the information in memory. The best one is, if you have seen the material before, try pre-testing yourself on it before doing any reading at all. Do some blank page retrieval first and challenge yourself to see what you can remember about the topic, however little it is. You can, of course, do all three of the above at once. That is, pre-test yourself with blank page retrieval, read with highlighting and underlining, and do another blank page retrieval afterwards. This will be vastly more effective than just reading, especially if you follow up with subsequent rounds of spaced retrieval practice by attempting the blank page retrieval exercise on other days. Mind maps. Now, some of you may have already started using mind maps through MindMaster, but it helps to get information organized in your memory. They are useful to understand the overall structure of a topic rather than trying to learn a random jumble of disconnected facts. It's much easier to learn a topic when you appreciate how the details are organized into their major subcategories and how specific points relate to each other. So here's a three-way step process to make learning with mind maps effective study strategies that will actually work. First, stop making mind maps pretty. You don't need a beautiful illustrated picture in the middle. You don't need to worry about every word written on a curvy line. Make them fast, make them rough. It's the process of making them that counts, not having the finished product. Second, make them from memory. Shut your books, sketch as much as you can from memory. Once you have squeezed your memory as much as you can, grab a second color of pen and correct any mistakes. Third, throw them away. Knowing that you will throw them away will encourage you to make them quick and focus on what matters, the exercise itself. And when you have done it once, do it again. Do your usual spaced retrieval practice and leave a time gap. Then repeat the whole exercise by scribbling out the mind map from memory. Getting together with others in a study group can be a good idea for many reasons. It mixes things up for you, helping you stay interested and engaged. If you're studying a subject where opinions matter, for example, discussing things as a group can be a great way to uncover new perspectives, new angles, and a fresh take that your examiners will love. Sometimes your friends will have figured things out that you haven't, and you can learn from them. One of the best ways to do this, of course, is to be the teacher yourself in the study group and explain it to others. To teach information to others, you first have to understand it yourself. And this is a remarkable practice because often when attempting to teach something to others, you learn your own learning and understanding gaps. Therefore, when you're trying to learn something new, challenge yourself to consider how to teach it to someone else. Reciting your presentation aloud to someone else will help the details stick in your mind, and your audience may be able to point out gaps in your knowledge. Getting friends or family members to test you is also a good way to learn. But first, identify what they need to know. What are the facts, dates, formulas, grammar points they need to know? Be sure to agree this with your testees first. Then they must let you know where you're weak. Then at the end of the exercise, they must let you know where your weak points are. So giving feedback is important. Keep a note of the biggest trouble spots and make sure to retest yourself on these a day or two later, but not immediately. What are mnemonic strategies? Mnemonic strategies incorporate techniques like acronyms and acrostics and looking for patterns in lists and numbers to make them easier to remember. They are flexible, helpful, and recommended. Now, how does one use practice tests and practice questions? Very great way it's another very great way to do retrieval practice. So it's a two-phase process for effective practice question study sessions. First, do as much as you can from memory, preferably under timed conditions. It's okay to guess if you're not sure. Second, check carefully and give yourself feedback. Once you have given your best shot at a string of questions, or better still, a whole exam paper, check your answers. Consult your notes or books to see what you have got right and what you have missed. Or if you have access to the mark scheme, and put on your examiner's hat and diligently check where you scored marks, where you lost marks. This is the crucial part of this process is this part where you check yourself, and this students tend to skip a bad mistake because the purpose of this exercise is how much you learned and where you got things wrong. So at the end of the exercise, set aside any questions that totally foxed you and have another crack at them the next day to check you learned something. Now, studying effectively with interleaving. Now, interleaving is an interesting intellectual exercise because it works by breaking up blocks of practice questions. For example, rather than doing a whole long stretch of practice on problem A type before doing another long stretch on type B, you jumble them up. Switch between problem A and type A and problem type B. A couple of each, continually switching between the two. The graphic shows using integration and differentiation problems to illustrate the concept, but it works with any type of problem. For best results, use interleaving with two types of problems that are quite closely related, but potentially confusing. Sleep learning. Now, reviewing studying materials before bed can help your brain learn, even in your sleep. So just before you go to sleep, take a book and read through it. It helps. It helps to consolidate your learning. A quick recap. Now, an often neglected but crucial key to the puzzle of how to study effectively comes into making sure you yourself are well. You have to think of yourself as an athlete, an elite exam taking athlete. And I did mention before, studying is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And you cannot possibly perform at your best unless you're taking good care of your own mind and body. Firstly, decide what kind of student you want to be. Are you going to decide to identify as a high performing student? Once you decide you're a high performer, you will behave accordingly. That might only mean a small tweak to your habits each day. Working 3 hours instead of 2, using retrieval practice, not just rereading. Small changes sustained each day over weeks and months add up to a massive difference end result. And if you struggle to associate with that new identity as a high performer today, then pretend. Pretend that you're a high performer. Ask yourself what a high performer would do in this situation. How would they tackle this assignment, this tricky exam question, and act accordingly. There's no such thing as not being good at something. You're not good at it yet. And I'm going to repeat that. There's no such thing as not being good at something. You're just not good at it yet. It's called the growth mindset. Keep studying, keep growing. Focus on effort, not the end result. Focus on the process, not on achievement. Believe you can improve, even in your weak subjects, as long as you put in the time and hard work. Embrace challenges. Focus on the process, not on the outcome. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck's research shows that these kind of high performing students define success as pushing themselves to learn something new, not as getting straight A's. Not so successful students tend to set performance goals, while successful students tend to set learning goals. So what does that mean? What's the difference between these two types of goals? Performance goals, example, getting 90% on the next maths test, getting into the top ranked school, are about looking intelligent and proving yourself to others. In contrast, learning goals, doing 3 algebra problems every day, learning 5 new French words a day, are about mastery and growth. So set yourself learning goals. Make sure you're getting your regular bout of exercise every day, ideally building something into your daily routine that gets your heart rate up. Walking, swimming, running, cycling, playing a sport. A brisk walk is a great way to take a quality break. It will not only reset your focus, but also boost your creativity. Don't neglect those around you. Cultivate a support network among your friends and family so they are there when you need them. That's the best done by talking, sharing what's going on well and not well regularly. And I want to focus on this again. Sharing what's going on well and not well regularly. Getting struggles off your chest by discussing them with someone is also a great way to avoid stress building and making sure that you are in the right mindset to study effectively. Taking slow, calm breaths from deep in your belly is a great tonic to soothe jittery nerves. Get in the habit of practicing this regularly. Experts argue that the difference between slow learners and quick studiers is the way they study. For example, instead of memorizing, quick learners make connections between ideas. The more strongly you relate new concepts to concepts you already understand, the faster you will learn the new information. For example, if you're learning about electricity, you could relate it to the flow of water. Voltage is akin to water pressure. Current is akin to flow rate of water. A battery is akin to a pump, and so on. Another example you can think of is white blood cells as soldiers that defend our body against disease, which are the enemies. So form connections when you do studies. Immunize yourself against the pressures of final exam exam day by practicing regularly under exam conditions. Here are a few things. Silent room, timed paper, no notes, no phone, only exam stationery. You could even commit to telling someone the results of the mock paper to simulate the pressure to deliver. You're conscientious and committed. So if anything, it will serve your long-term interests best, not by urging yourself to work even harder, but by reminding yourself not to work too hard and burn yourself out. Adopt a sustainable, healthy routine. Keep working hard and keep work and play in balance. If you're getting fewer hours of sleep than you need, your brain function will suffer. Typically, adults need 7 to 8 hours, and it's more for teenagers. Without proper sleep, you'll be worse at paying attention, worse at remembering things, less able to solve problems, not so creative, less able to form new memories. If it's the day before the big test, set a clear quit time for the night so that you stop studying at least an hour before bedtime. That gives you the chance to wind down before bed. Just as important as working hard, do not forget the ancient time-honored practice of the day off. I believe there are 4 types of unplugging we all need. A few minutes off an hour to maintain focus, a few hours off each day for well-being activities like exercise, and at least a little daily me time. A day off each week for a bigger refresh, indulging in things that make your soul happy. For example, walking in nature, playing competitive sport, making fine music, hanging out with friends, or simply curling up with a book. Don't forget to have fun. When time comes to put your pen down, enjoy it guilt-free. When you're working, study hard. When you stop, make it quality time. All the best for the Diwali break, and may the light of knowledge always be with you.